to speak.
My Lords, I am speaking to the amendments in this group on behalf of these benches, and in doing so I confirm the strong support we expressed at second reading for this bill. There was a sense of outrage when President Trump attempted to squeeze an agreement for the extraction of rare minerals out of Ukraine without payment. His argument was that capital and equipment sent to Ukraine by Congress under the leadership of President Biden was not a grant, as had previously been thought, but a loan. That is the outrage felt in Wales when its natural assets are exploited without any benefit to the people of Wales. At second reading, Lord Wigley referred to the flooding of Treasury and the political consequences which followed, including very probably his presence in this House. The purpose of the Conservative amendments is to ensure that none of the assets or income of the Crown estates in Wales, whether property rights in land or the highly valuable rights in relation to the Welsh zone, should fall under the control of the Senate or its ministers. Rents and profits should whiz up the motorway to lodge in the Treasury as they always have, even when it was called Watling Street. Perish the thought that some Welshman in the tradition of Owen Glendower would get his hands on the loot. You might call that the Conservative principle. The government's reaction is to say our accountants can't possibly do the sums. What comes from Wales could be anything between nil or £1 billion. My Lords, as was pointed out at second reading, they did precisely that until 2021. In Scotland, they work out the income of the Crown estates now. The Minister said at second reading that the profits of the Crown estates in Scotland are deducted from the block grant. Is that really the case? Does the Scottish Government get nothing from the oil revenues? The Nationalists were going to run the whole country on those at one time. We call for these Conservative amendments to be rejected out of hand. Lord Thomas of Cumgeath is more constructive, as we can see from his later amendments. He accepts the argument as expressed by Lord Moynihan that the government are in the process of delicate negotiations which the transfer of management to the Welsh Government immediately might interrupt. He's proposing a transitional period during which the existing commissioners must consult and take into account the views of Welsh ministers and provide them, with a view to transparency, with all the information they may require concerning capital and income, direct expenses and costs. He rightly wishes to challenge the suggestion that it is all too difficult to sort out. We support him entirely in this, although we would like clarity from the Minister as to what precise negotiations would currently be affected if the bill, as drafted, came into force. Thank you, my Lords.
I rise very briefly to speak on behalf of the Wales Green Party against all of the amendments in this group. And I have to say that the noble Lord Harlech perhaps misinterpreted my reaction. I was astonished that he should be addressing the issue not just in the direction of travel, but that he should not be taking seriously the fact that statistics showed that the 20-mile-per-hour speed limits saved about 100 deaths and serious injuries on Welsh roads when they were in impact, when they were in force. And I think that that should be, those saved lives and people's lives being transformed for the worse by serious injuries should not something that should be taken in any way lightly. And it's a great pity that it's not continuing. And I note that similar figures from TfL in London shows a 34% decrease in deaths and serious injuries in London. there's a range of measures affecting that, 15% perhaps from other measures, but 20 mile per hour is a significant factor in reducing deaths and injuries on roads, and surely everyone wants that to happen. It's a great pleasure to follow the noble lady Baroness Harris of Richmond. She has far more personal connection with this than me, and the passion in her speech leaves me really with little to add, except the fact that the Crown Estate in Wales is drawing on Welsh resources. The resources surely should stay in Wales. This is a basic democratic principle, the lack of which, the concentration of power and resources here in Westminster, is a problem all round the country, but particularly for the nation of Wales is indeed growing, the fast-growing interest in independence for Wales. And those who wish to maintain the Union might like to think about what position they're taking on this bill, because not being able to have the returns from their own resources is something that there's increasing anger about in Wales. Yeah. So I spoke at second reading in favour of...
My lords, what guarantee can the noble Baroness give that were this bill to pass, that the revenue from it would be distributed equally throughout Wales and not just concentrated in Cardiff and the surrounding area as revenues currently are?
Responding to Noble Lord Harlech, I have to say that Wales, of course, has a democratic electoral system and a democratic political system, unlike Westminster, where we have a government that won the support of 34% of voters and is in control. So if we're looking about democratic distribution of resources, then you're a lot better off in the Senate than you are in Westminster. I think I was about to finish, so I just simply will repeat the statement. Wales Green Party very strongly backs this bill and would oppose these amendments, and more power to Lord Wigley's elbow.
Thank you very much.
My Lords, I rise to move amendments 2, 3, 8 and 9 standing in my name in the order paper. And I seek to explain why I oppose Clause 1 stand part in the bill. In doing so, I declare my interest as set out in the register with particular reference to my chairmanship of AMI and Actian, which, although not contracted in offshore wind projects in Wales, and works in this space worldwide. Before I concentrate on my amendments, I would like to place on record the considerable sadness I have in finding myself in opposition to the noble Lord Wigley, who saw me through my backbench and ministerial career in another place. I've always viewed him as a trusted friend and outstanding politician, and he's recognised as such across both sides of both houses. I put that down to the English influence on him, which, if I'm not mistaken, came from his birth in Derby and education in Manchester. My Lords, turning to the amendments, Amendments 2 and 8 seek to ensure that this bill is in line with the borrowing limits as the Crown Estate. Ostensibly, it's reasonable to ask why such borrowing limits are prudent. The answer is that there is considerable political, strategic and commercial risk associated with devolving and transferring the functions of the Crown Estate in Wales to Welsh ministers. Looked at specifically, the most recent publicly available figures for asset values in Wales is from the August 2023 Freedom of Information request, which stated in property values in sterling, offshore wind and marine, some 793 million, out of a total of 853 million of assets, which our focus is therefore on those offshore wind opportunities, particularly wind, but not exclusively wind, which is some 93%. Marine energy, therefore, is some 93% of those assets. And that's what I think we need to focus on in terms of considering this bill. And taking a 25% debt to asset value would mean borrowing up to £213 million, which would need to be against Welsh assets to this value. Currently, as I understand it, Crown Estate Scotland does not have access to borrowing powers, so even if my amendment was accepted, it would create further asymmetry in terms of opportunity. Yet the difficulty of making sense of these figures, and therefore the security required for borrowing, is further compounded by a number of economic factors. And the first is the creation of global instability in the sector. The international renewable energy market is experiencing that instability, in no small part due to the changes of US tariff and green subsidy policies.